set?
Today is Wednesday, July 18th, 2012, and Joe Turner and myself, Judy Meyer, are talking to Tom Murphy and Larry Kleisel. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
That's right.
And we are at a business today. We are at the Orchid Dell Florist on St. Charles Rock Road. Can you tell us, Tom, the specific address?
12123 St. Charles Rock Road.
And how would you describe your location for people that might not be familiar with
We're
this?
close to McKelvey Road. We're just east of McKelvey Road. We're about, better part of a mile east of Highway 270 on St. Charles Rock Road. We're catty-corner from DePaul Hospital.
Okay. How long has the floor shop been here?
Been here since June of 1963. Isn't that right? But it was established before that in the Carrollton Shopping Center.
Really?
1960, I think.
And how long have you been the proprietor?
I have been the owner since 1967.
And before that? Who was the owner?
Larry's father and mother.
Larry, so your mother and father actually opened up?
My dad was retired and started it with his sister
Oh.
and my uncle.
Oh.
And my sister, his sister died of cancer and they got out of it. And my dad bought this property here and moved it over here himself.
I see. So did you grow up being involved in a floral shop?
Yeah, we lived in St. John's and rented a place in Carrollton Shopping Center. And he had a nursery back in greenhouses in St. John's also.
Oh, really? So your father was quite into the greenery?
And it was all started as a hobby.
Oh, really? That's interesting. And did you help while you were growing up with the plants and flowers in
Yeah.
some way?
He pretty much had me working all the time.
How many orchids were in the greenhouse?
We always said there was at least 50,000.
Oh my goodness, orchids.
Yeah, it was. You came over here on a sunny winter day, and it was like dying and being in paradise. The fragrance and the flowers were just overwhelming.
Is that where the name of the shop came from, Orchid Dell? Because of the orchids? So did he specialize in orchids?
Yes, that's all he grew.
Oh,
After he got out of the nursery business, he went through the orchids through Nettie's and got a lot of orchids from Nettie's and started the greenhouses here, and they just kept growing and multiplying and he kept building more greenhouses.
now you say here he had greenhouses, but the greenhouses first started in St. John's.
As
you
a
said.
hobby.
And then he actually had greenhouses in this area in Bridgeton.
Yes, when they built the shop, they built greenhouses along with it.
What did he grow in his greenhouses here?
All orchids. He sold them to the florist all around St. Louis wholesale.
Oh, he was like a supplier.
And then, of course, they used the majority of them here in the shop.
And then the florist shop grew out of that, the way I understand, as an outlet for the orchids plus all the other flowers.
Well, you know, as I look around your shop here, I do notice a lot of different ways you display your items using furniture, tables, chairs, hutch, pegboard. Where did you get the idea to use these pieces of furniture to display?
Well, we wanted to give it a kind of a homey look. And my wife is a real estate agent, and she acquired the furniture through pieces that were left in homes that she sold. And we just make do with whatever the piece of furniture looked like and turn it into a flower display.
I think that's really nice. I notice a lot of chairs and cushions and just a lot of different items. Well, Tom, did you live here in Bridgeton? Or do you presently live here in Bridgeton?
No, I never have lived in Bridgeton.
You've never been a Bridgeton resident. Well, when was your first, association with Bridgeton?
Well, when Larry's father owned the florist, they also had a school here. and I attended the school, the floral design school.
Oh,
So when I finished that class, Larry's father told me that he wanted to sell the business and that he would give me a chance to buy it first. So that's when I became the owner
I see.
in 1967.
What did you do before that?
I was in retailing. I worked for Dillard's.
Okay. All right.
And my father-in-law thought I had, had a little opportunity here if I loved flowers, which I did.
It is nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it's been a nice, happy road.
Well, where do you live presently?
I live in De Pere,
Okay.
the city of flowers.
Is that their name?
Yeah.
And
There used to be a lot of greenhouses, a lot of growers in De Pere. Now I don't think there are any anymore.
so, but you still feel comfortable staying in this location?
Oh, sure. Bridgeton is a lovely city. We have wonderful customers. But customers come from all over. A lot of our customers have never been in the shop, but they know our work. And
Really?
That's why, they like our work and they buy from us no matter where they live.
Well, I know my husband and I have been in here many times, and it's always interesting to come in and
We
select
try
something.
to keep it interesting.
Yes, yes, you sure do.
Changes all the time.
When you were growing up, where were you? Where'd you live?
I did live in St. Anne, and before that, prior to that, I lived in the city. But I
Did-
always had a love for flowers, always grew something as a child even. And I was nurtured by one of my aunts who loved every flower that God ever put on this earth, and if, she could make anything flourish. And that's where I really got my interest in flowers.
What is your favorite?
Oh,
Or do
I
you
can't
have one?
say. It changes. Whatever pretty flower comes in that day. Roses are most interesting flowers because of the way they open and change. But through the years, we've had so many more flowers to work with than we had when I first began.
Do you get flowers imported from other countries?
Most of them come from
Really?
South America.
Really?
Yeah,
South America?
There are some growers in United States like California and Colorado, but the majority of the flowers and all roses come from South America now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do they really last long
They
enough?
do better than they ever have, even years ago when there were local growers. The roses of today last a lot longer. They tend to open faster, but they stay, as a good rose a longer period of time.
Well, when they transport them, what do they do to ensure that they will?
Not a lot. When they come in, we hydrate them. We put them in fresh water, cut the ends, and put a flower food in with the flowers. And very rarely have a flower go down before its time.
Wow.
Especially roses. Years ago, you'd get a complaint on a rose that never opened.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, as they say, they open faster, but they pretty much longer.
Wow.
So people that are used to rosebuds, it's hard to really get a rosebud. This because of the way that the roses are grown to open faster. But then now people are used to what they call a blown rose, which is a rose that is opened.
Oh, okay.
And it's just the older people that still think they're getting a bad deal if the roses are opening. They want rosebuds.
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe they just feel like it'll last longer.
But that's a fallacy.
Well, that's new to me. What do you think is the most popular flowers that you sell to people?
Well, roses without a doubt. And they have a kind of a distinction to them. People think of them like a red rose as being, a symbol of love. And any man buying for a lady at least wants some roses in an arrangement. It's,
Romantic.
well, yeah, and a symbol of, caring and that you, kind of like Hallmark, you care enough to send the very best. Roses cost a little bit more, but, you know, they're wonderful flowers.
Tom, do you have any recollections of Bridgeton before you came over here as a...
Well, as a child, we used to come, my school picnic used to be at Westlake Park, which was out at 270 and Natural Bridge, which is, I guess now, encompasses Highway 270.
Very close to where we are sitting right now, actually.
Yes, and also as a child, my parents had friends in Bridgeton, and we used to come out, you know, and visit these friends.
Where
and
were they?
They were on Old St. Charles Rock Road, and at that time it seemed like the country to me, you know, because
Was Northwest Plaza here at that
oh
time?
no. I don't remember a lot, you know, of when, you know, the timetable of when things occurred.
Uh-huh.
It all just kind of gels after a while, and you know, I don't remember the exact years, but it was a far different city at that time. There were a lot of historic homes that have disappeared, such as, you know, on the corner of Fifi and the Rock Road.
The
you know.
Lucas home?
I guess that's what it was. I don't remember the name, but you know, a lot of the older buildings, and plus they had the what was the Bayou Bell, a boat. That
You
was a
remember the
restaurant.
Bayou Bell?
Oh yeah, sure.
And I saw him move it down the rock road.
You did? What, when they, if you'll just let us go to the Bayou Bell for a minute, Joe remembers or knows stories about the Bayou Bell. Did they run into any trouble for overhead wires or anything? Do you know?
Not that I was pretty young, but I don't remember any trouble. There wasn't much down there.
Yeah, there was where Target is now. Wasn't there a fruit stand or bait stand or something?
Target used to be ponds and a bait shop.
In a bait shop?
Bait shop.
The only thing was here when I moved out here mainly was the Amico, which was standard, and McKelvey did not go through the Natural Bridge. It just went to the top of the hill. And, well, of course, Grandpa Pigeons was here.
Yes,
But
that,
Grandpa Pigeons was out.
No, it was there.
Oh, was it there? At one time, it was out at Natural Bridge and the Rock, near where they meet. Natural
we've
Bridges.
heard that. Is Roy Swantner a neighbor of yours
Yes.
around the corner here?
His house used to be this way from us, east. And then he moved up here on McKelvey, and some of the property that he bought was from us
I didn't know that. Where did you live before?
over here.
I
A little
think-
house that
He had
almost
a
touches the
garage
street.
over here, and then he built up here.
That was not the little house. That was Mrs. Pruitt.
It was the next one over.
Oh, there was another house there.
Remember they made a haunted house out of it?
When did they make a haunted house out of
One
it?
Halloween, after he moved out, he had his shop up there, but his garage was there originally. It was where Niedering House is.
And I do remember the nursery down the road, Hilltop.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
France.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And before that, it seemed like there was a boat shop or something down that way. Didn't they used to have a boat on display somewhere around there?
Number of boats.
Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of remember a building with a boat out in front.
Well, you said you went to Westlake Amusement Park. And Larry, did you also go to...
That's before me.
That was long before Larry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tom, would you mind telling us what year you were born?
No, I don't mind telling. I was born in 1935.
Okay. And Larry?
1954.
Okay. So there's a little difference in...
20 years.
You know,
if you
and
consider that a little.
what, you know, you first knew of Bridgeton and possibly you remember. And myself, I didn't move out to Bridgeton to about 1972, actually.
Mhm.
So, and even then, things have greatly changed.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
I was in second grade when I first came out and visited the shop in Carrollton. And I remember I bowled a junior league at Carrollton Bowling Alley on Saturdays, because my mom and dad worked at the Florist.
Okay. Now, after you moved here, where did you go to school?
Well, we built our house here in back of the greenhouses, and I was just starting fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Bridgeway for 1 year, then they changed the boundaries, and I went to Carrollton
Okay. And then did you finish and graduate from Pattonville?
Yeah, I went to Carrollton through 6th grade. I went to Pattonville Heights the first year they opened it. And I went back to the old high school when they closed it on the Rock Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the new high school on McCullough the first year they opened that. And graduated from there in 1973.
So you kind of went a lot of back and forth in
Yeah.
going to school.
Yeah.
Did they always have school bus for transportation?
We got it right in front of the shop here.
Well, that's handy.
And they didn't like stopping on the Rock Road, so we got it at the top of the hill on McKelvey.
That's still handy for you. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 older brothers, and they were both one brother's 20 years older than I am, the other brother's 10 years older than I am.
Wow, that's a lot of spacing in between.
They were pretty much set in their lives, and when my mom and dad passed on, they didn't want anything to do with it, so we sold it all to Mr. Murphy and another partner of his.
So, did your father basically was involved in the shop until he passed away?
Well, I think he knew he was sick, that's why he wanted to sell the shop. But he kept the greenhouses, and he ran the greenhouses himself.
What happened to those greenhouses?
Snowstorm of 82,
Oh, really? A snowstorm?
24 inches.
What?
They were unheated at the time, and the snow just didn't have a way. It just was dead weight on the glass on a Valentine's Day, wasn't
It
it?
fell on down.
Oh my God, how inappropriate is that?
Yeah.
Well, there was 4 greenhouses, only one of them fell.
Now, when you say a greenhouse, was the roof made of glass?
We had 2 glass houses and 2 fiberglass houses.
So when that damaged, then did you decide that you weren't going to rebuild the greenhouses?
My mom had already passed away, and it was all in Interstate.
By then the orchids were pretty well dispersed too.
And the orchids were all gone out of the main house.
What did you continue to do then, Larry?
I went to work for Mr. Murphy.
And we're still doing it happily, hopefully for a long time.
Been together a long time. He's been like a dad to me.
That's wonderful. Are you a designer?
I piddle around a little bit.
Do you?
If something falls apart, you can sure put it back together.
What else do you do here at the florist shop?
I deliver the flowers and take care of the plants and anything that needs to be done.
Do you have you do have actual growing plants then?
Right. Lots of them.
How long will you keep a plant if it doesn't sell here? Do you just
Well, if it gets ugly, it gets ousted. But most plants just get fuller and prettier. You know, we don't have them for more than a couple of months at the most. I'd say most plants sell within that time.
really?
We get delivery of plants every week, so there's no reason for us to have plants in here that don't sell.
So you never have to transplant them into bigger pots?
No. They sell too quickly.
That's wonderful. Do you ever, who do you buy your supplies from? I see a lot of glass vases and ribbons and.
Most of it comes from the floral market on LaSalle Street.
Do you pick up from them?
Yes.
Yeah, almost, well, either that or another resource almost daily.
Really?
We go to a flower market.
Wow. How extensive is your delivery base?
Depends on how busy we are, and normally we could just about go anywhere, but this Winsfield's about as far west
Wow.
as we go.
Well, that is pretty far.
Yeah, and then we go into the city.
Really?
South County.
Wow.
Well, that's what you call a full-service florist. You can't have customers who live everywhere and not deliver most places, you know. They may have to wait till the next day for delivery, but usually it's possible.
Well, Tom, how many employees do you have here?
It varies. At the moment, I'd say we have 4. Years ago, when the florist business was at its peak, we probably had 6 or so. But things change, the supermarkets, and people's, buying flowers for funerals, that has lessened a lot
Really?
because of the funeral. People are simplifying the funerals that they have.
Do you still make great big arrangements
We
for
do, but
funerals?
the trend, since things are, don't last, more than a day usually, a lot of people opt for vases or plants or plant baskets, something that would be taken home.
Mm-hmm.
We still make a lot of the traditional funeral arrangements, especially for families, because you want something showy.
That's true.
But other times, other people will pick something maybe that, wouldn't go on the trash, that wouldn't be taken home.
Right,
Someone in the family.
right. And then you would deliver those. I see. Well, you were starting to talk about, I believe, a family that you used to visit here in Bridgeton.
Yeah, that was Bud and Julie Thies. They
Thies,
lived
can you
on
spell
Old
that?
St. Theis, I would think.
Were they the owners of,
I don't think so, but they owned a big parcel of property on Old St. Charles Rock Road, and they named Raymond Avenue after their son. They had one son named Raymond, and they had, like a mini farm at the time that I used to come out here, with a lot of fruit trees, and they had an outhouse, and although they had indoor plumbing, and they had a cistern on their property.
what is a cistern?
A cistern, I think it's a storage for water that you have to pump and bring it up out of the storage. I don't know. They're kind of a thing of the past, I think. But that's
Right.
what I always thought it was. It wasn't a well, but it was more of a storage for water.
Do you think that many of the families that live on Old St. Charles had trees and farms and property like that?
Oh yes, right down the road was McNamee's apple orchard. And that's right down the road from us.
Hello.
Oh, is you doing an interview?
We are interviewing, we're from the Bridgeton Historical Commission, and we're interviewing Tom and Larry today. But you're welcome to
Go right on up.
take care of business as well. Please, please don't let us stop you.
I'm sorry.
That's quite okay.
Sorry.
No problem at all. We fully expected people to come in, right?
Right.
What are your hours here at the shop?
I get here about 8 in the morning, but our open hours are from 8:30 till 5 during the week until 3 p.m. on Saturday.
And you're closed on Sunday.
Right.
Sounds very nice.
Yeah.
You work most Sundays,
I may make a funeral delivery on Sunday, but it's not a regular day for the shop to be open.
You must have a pretty good wedding business also.
Yes, weddings I think are nice. They're a lot of time consuming. To have weddings, and like Larry will tell you, sometimes a nightmare to deliver. The deliveries, trying to get into the different venues and walking many steps, and it's not an easy part of the business. I don't think the funerals and everyday business is much easier.
I'm just glad we don't rent the equipment anymore.
Yeah, isn't it? the
Now,
truth?
what type of equipment are you referring to?
Oh, like the candles and needlers, and many a times we do a lot of evening weddings, which don't seem to be as popular anymore. And I'd be out at 9 o'clock waiting for equipment, for them to finish with the equipment, because the churches would insist that all the equipment be out of the church before their mass the next morning or their Sunday services. But most weddings occur in the afternoon now.
It's interesting.
Yeah, hardly ever do we have an evening wedding anymore.
Well,
They put them pretty close together where we have to wait for the wedding before sometimes.
Yeah, to clear out.
what do you mean? What'd you say?
They run the wedding, the different venues, say the Botanical Garden or the Jewel Box. They run one wedding right after another.
Oh, I've been to the
Yeah.
botanical garden where there may be several
Yeah,
in
oh,
different
yeah.
parts of the garden.
We're doing one at the Jewel Box in a couple weeks, and you have like 30 minutes to between weddings, that you have to do whatever you have to do in that 30 minutes.
So if you're doing a wedding and then there's a second wedding and a totally different florist is going to come in and do something maybe completely different.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That sounds wild.
It can be.
And I've been to the Jewel Box before when they had the hydrangeas.
Well, they no longer have any flowers in the Jewel Box.
Oh, really?
It is a venue that they rent for our events.
So it's strictly like just an open.
Kind of like the Piper Palm House. I don't know if you've been
No,
there
I'm
in
not.
Grove Park.
No, I'm not.
I think it's the oldest greenhouse in the Midwest.
Really?
And it's just a party venue now, as is the Jewel Box.
Is the Jewel Box what you would call it, a greenhouse?
No, I mean it was
Right.
a greenhouse, but it's no longer used for those purposes. But thank goodness they preserved it, even though the use of it is different.
So do you have very many clients that?
No, we don't. It's not a place that we go regularly. Most weddings that we do are in a church.
We don't have as many of the churches. Let's just say we do not have many of the churches that we used to have
Oh
here in
yes, but the
Bridgeton.
city churches are the most popular places now. The old beautiful churches. People that don't live in the area will rent those churches for their wedding because they're beautiful.
Do you have children, Tom? Do you have any children, Larry?
I have a boy and a girl.
Are they married?
No.
Okay, so neither one of you really had a family wedding to provide for yet. When people come in, do you try to advise them on the flowers to use for?
Most people have a general idea of something they would like. You try to guide them. You don't really tell them what to order. You just guide them, listen to them, what you think their tastes are, and then help them with putting different colors together for the wedding party. But people don't want to be told what they want. They have a little bit of an idea what they want, and you just carry that idea out for them.
Now, you had mentioned that Larry's father had a school here?
Mhm.
And what was the school?
Floral design school.
That's nice. Was
Taught you the
he
basics.
in charge of this?
No, he had a lady that taught the classes.
Oh,
Was it
okay.
a lady, or did you go to a little lady, or did you go to Tom Watson?
No, Daisy.
That's
Tom
appropriate.
Watson started it.
That's the I don't remember that.
And the school itself was right here?
Right here,
In the basement.
Oh, really?
Well, when I went, it was up here.
I remember starting in the basement with Tom
Yeah.
Watson.
Hmm.
It sticks in my mind.
And we just came after hours.
Yeah, it was at night.
And you learned floral arranging
The basics.
and you said your wife is in real estate?
Right.
So I guess she interested in floral aspects?
Not at all, but she does service the weddings for us a lot of times.
Say what?
She services the weddings, pins on corsages.
Oh, really?
boutonnieres,
Oh, okay.
Sends the wedding party down the aisle
Oh.
and such.
Kind of like a wedding coordinator?
More or less. She doesn't plan the wedding. She just carries out the duties that need to be done at that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Larry, let's get back to you. You grew up here in Bridgeton, and you went to Carrollton School and Pattonville Middle, and then Pattonville High School. Were you involved in any activities in the high school?
I played baseball and basketball for a year, and then I got a job at the airport in a car and quit.
What did you do at the airport?
Wash dishes.
That's what you did at the airport?
That came off the plane.
Oh, okay. What was the airport like, and what years do you think that would be?
I was a freshman, so it was probably
Okay.
69, 70.
So what was the airport like at that time? Any different than what it's like now?
Except for all the new new runways, it's just pretty much the same. I work for Host International. I think that building's still there.
Mm-hmm. But we had TWA?
We only had a work plane.
It was a hub.
Right.
We're no longer a hub.
No, unfortunately. Yeah. Would you like to tell us anything else about you remember growing up? Like Carrollton, we did interview the lady that owned the beauty shop in Carrollton. Let me see if
Isla Jarvis.
Lila Jarvis.
No clue who that is.
You probably didn't go there.
I knew Mrs. Telsher,
The McNamees,
Where were they?
the Branickies.
Branickies, knew the
And,
Branickies.
did you go into the Velvet Freeze over there?
Oh yeah, I knew the Ramseys when they owned it.
Uh-huh.
I went to school with Ron Ramsey.
What about the,
And my father-in-law wife owned the closet.
Oh, yes. I used to like to
Yeah.
go in there and pick out things for my mother-in-law.
Bob Dean.
you probably did some shopping at the Carrollton Schnucks?
Oh, yes. I was sorry to see them go because you could pop in there and be in and out in 15 minutes, whereas now it takes you 15 minutes to get in the doors.
I remember shopping at the IGA.
Right.
Yeah, I remember the IGA
That
real
was
well
next
too.
door to Orchid
Lemon
Dell.
Pools or something like that was there.
Yeah.
There was an IGA, and then the Schnook store, I know, was a JB.
That was built separate later.
Yes. And I worked there for many years. Perhaps that's where I saw you.
Yes.
And now it's a Buddhist temple or Muslim
Yeah.
temple.
I'm not sure. I really don't know.
Went back in there to really look.
It's not Muslim, it's Buddhist would be my guess.
But it's seems to be real low key, you know, don't hear anything bad about them. Just go their ways.
Mm-hmm. Now, Larry, do you live here in Bridgeton now?
No, I built a house out in O'Fallon and recently got divorced and now I'm living in St. Anne.
Oh, so you're not far from Bridgeton.
Nope.
And you said you lived in St. Anne when you were young.
Right.
What school did you go to?
St. Gregory,
And where'd you go to high school?
McBride.
Oh, was that an all-boys school?
Yes, it was a Catholic all-boys school. Does not exist, hasn't existed since the 70s, but has a very strong alumni association.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 53.
You were 8 years ahead of me.
You
Oh,
went to
Joe
McBride
Turner
also?
went to McBride? Isn't that something?
Yeah, it was a fine school.
Yeah, the building is still there.
Do you belong to the alumni?
I get emails from them all the time.
My class meets every month
Uh,
for lunch.
Ours was not that active.
No, how did you meet your wife? Surely she
I
didn't go
met my
to...
wife when I worked at Dillard's.
And what part of town was she from?
She was from Town and Country.
So she went to...
She went to Incarnate Word
Oh,
High
okay.
School.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, they lived on Nature Bridge in Belmore.
Oh, really?
In fact, their house is now the alumni house for the University of Missouri.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And is there anything else you would like to tell us about thinking back on this area, say 20 years ago, or looking back, you know, before? We now have Walmart just up the street from
Yes.
here.
Haven't been there yet.
Do you
Well-
think they have flowers to buy?
I really don't know.
I don't either.
Maybe I'm better off not knowing. I've never really been in a Walmart.
Larry, have you been in?
I haven't been in the new one yet, no.
Did
Well-
they have them in the old Walmart? Flowers?
They did sometimes on holidays. I don't know if the super centers might have them. I heard they even have a beauty shop in this one.
Really? That's interesting. I didn't know that. I'm not a Walmart fan.
As they say, I just haven't had one in my backyard, so I never shop at them.
My daughter works for Walmart,
Oh, really? Which location is that?
and so
Oh, okay.
she's getting ready to go to college. And not sure where yet, but she hasn't quite made up her mind.
I see. Now, Larry, you were telling me earlier something about a room, a cooler back there.
Oh, yeah, when my dad moved in the shop, he dated the cooler door with a grease pencil. He
Uh-huh.
always carried a grease pencil in his front pocket and had a little stain on all his shirts because that's what he had to write on the back of the tags of all the orchid plants when he repotted them. He put the date on them. He had a grease pencil and a cigar in his pocket.
Yeah, or in his mouth.
You wouldn't think cigars and orchids would go together.
Well, the orchids certainly smell better than the cigars.
Are you, are either one of you members of the botanical garden?
Oh, yes,
Do you go to any of their,
all of them.
Their
Haven't been to
shows?
the Chinese lantern display yet, but we'll get there
I hope so.
before it
It's
closes.
really, really interesting. It's fabulous. My husband and I went luckily in June before the weather turned so blasted hot.
Yeah.
Today, I don't know if it was a record day, but do you know how hot it was today?
Over 100, I'm sure.
This has been a very hot summer.
Terribly hot. Poor plants outside and the lawns are really suffering.
Yes, it's sad. In the spring, it starts out so pretty and green, and now it's dreadful.
It is.
Is there anything else you would like to tell us, Larry, about growing up here in Bridgeton or helping your father?
No, there's so much I could say. You know, there's the friends I grew up with were the Gherkins and the Briners that lived up on the top of the hill of McKelvey. The Gherkins farmed 1,000 acres.
Wow.
Down on Creek Farm Hill,
Wow.
right where you turn in to go to the lake.
It sounds like a lot.
They grew up down there, and then they built a house up here on McKelvey, and I grew up with them. They had actually 4 children, but 2 of them were older, so I knew the 2 younger children, and I think the Briners had 9 kids.
Let me ask you, was their property in jeopardy of flooding like so much down here was?
No, when they built this, some of the builders or somebody was saying that years ago the river did come to this point.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was years ago. And there was always a lot of deer tracks around here back when they first started building.
Were you a hunter like many of the young boys?
I hunted rabbits. I used to hunt rabbits in the apple orchard.
Likes to fish.
You know,
Do you still?
not right now. Still trying to recover.
Well, I thank you both for giving
Oh,
us your
thank
time
you.
today, and
It was a pleasure.
except for a couple of the young guys, that seemed like it worked out okay.
Sure. Well, that's the nature of interviewing in a business. You know, you're going to have that. Makes it realistic.
Yeah, that's true. But we were fortunate that you weren't,
Overly busy.
Right,
We
right.
were busy this morning, but we got our work done and worked out good.
well, you certainly have a beautiful place to work in. It
Well, thank you.
smells good the
It's
minute
been
you
a
walk in the
pleasure
door.
For many years.
You're very lucky to be in a place where you enjoy.
Try it, yes. Well, that's why I keep going far beyond my retirement time. If I hated it, I wouldn't be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.